Country rock legend Gram Parsons was born Ingram Cecil Connor III on November 5, 1946, in Winter Haven, Florida. Soon after, the family moved to Waycross, Georgia, where, at 9 years old, Parsons saw Elvis Presley in concert, inspiring him to start playing music. Although he was born into a wealthy, loving family, tragedy hit Parsons early and hard when he and his sister Avis lost their father to suicide 2 days before Christmas in 1958. The family moved to Florida, where Parsons' mother remarried. By his early teens, Parsons was forming and joining different bands around Winter Haven, Florida. He briefly joined the Rumors, a local band headed by Kent Lavoie, who later found success under the name Lobo.
I see the one in your blue eyes.
Eventually, Parsons' stepfather purchased a nightclub, the Dairy Down, where Parsons and his band the Shilohs entertained local teens and honed their musical chops. As he prepared to graduate from high school, and 7 years after his father's death, Parsons' mother died from cirrhosis caused by years of alcohol abuse. Parsons spent that summer touring before enrolling at Harvard University, where he immersed himself in country music, acquiring a deep appreciation of the music of Merle Haggard and Buck Owens. Parsons didn't stay in college long. After 3 months, he moved to New York City with the band he'd formed with friends at Harvard. As the band and Parsons' songwriting evolved, they named themselves the International Submarine Band and started playing regular gigs around the city. In 1967, with success eluding the band, Parsons convinced them to move to Hollywood, where they opened for such acts as The Doors and Iron Butterfly. It was around this time that Parsons increased his habitual use of drugs and alcohol, sometimes throwing a shadow over his musical pursuits. Regardless, by the end of the year, the band finished recording its first record, and Parsons and his girlfriend welcomed a daughter. In 1968, Parsons abruptly quit the International Submarine Band and joined the Byrds as a pianist after befriending the band's bassist, Chris Hillman. Parsons soon took over some vocal duties and reshaped the Byrds sound from folk to country. He played a pivotal role in making what's considered by many to be the Byrds' greatest album, Sweetheart of the Rodeo.
Winter time, you ain't got nowhere.
Years later, the Byrds' Roger McGuinn said that he thought he had recruited just a piano player, only to end up with a monster in sheep's clothing, George Jones in a sequin suit. Sweetheart of the Rodeo features two now classic Parsons songs, 100 Years From Now and Hickory Wind. In May of 1968, the band embarked on a European tour. During a show in London, Parsons met the Rolling Stones' Keith Richards, with whom he instantly bonded, spending many drug-fueled evenings introducing Richards to the music of his country music idols and influencing the Rolling Stones' own music. Only 6 months after joining the Byrds, Parsons quit the band prior to a tour in South Africa, where he was soon replaced by legendary guitarist Clarence White. Parsons immediately looked to join another group and reunited with a friend he'd met in New York, Richie Furay. Furay, who credited Parsons with introducing him to the country sounds of George Jones, was in the process of assembling the country rock band Poco and invited Parsons to audition. Parsons was not asked to join the band after confrontation with Poco's other founding member, Jim Messina, who eventually formed Loggins and Messina. Fortunately for Parsons, if Hillman resented Parsons' abrupt departure from the Byrds, it was short-lived. After Hillman himself quit the Byrds, he and Parsons formed the Flying Burrito Brothers, releasing their debut album, The Gilded Palace of Sin, in 1969. According to Hillman, Parsons' best vocals ever are featured in the album's songs Hot Burrito No. 1 and Hot Burrito No. 2.
But I'm the one.
The album's cover featured Parsons wearing his signature nudie suit, which, by the way, can be seen at the Country Music Hall of Fame, although that venerated institution has yet to make Parsons a member. The album was brilliant, but not commercially successful.
And I think
In 1970, the group released a second album, which is most notable for its cover of Wild Horses, the first recording released of the song, penned by Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. Once again, despite its brilliance, the album was not successful. Soon after, Parsons was fired from the band due in part to his excessive drug use and drinking. He was also accused of spending too much time with Keith Richards instead of focusing on his own music. Parsons began working on his first solo album in the early 70s. He was joined in this effort by Emmylou Harris, a young singer recommended to him by Hillman. Parsons and Harris's voices meshed so well together that they inspired what became decades of speculation that the two were an item.
She's got fantastic eye contact. She can sing anything that you're doing in perfect harmony as long as you look at her. And if you raise your eyebrows, if you're going up on a note, she goes right up with you in perfect pitch. It was beautiful.
Although by the time he met Harris, Parsons had married his longtime girlfriend, Gretchen. Ever the Elvis fan at heart, Parsons also recruited members of Elvis Presley's band, guitarist James Burton and drummer Ron Tutt, to join him on his first solo effort. The album, GP, was released in 1973. As with his other efforts, the album was praised by critics but not commercially successful, despite Parsons' constant touring. Parsons soon started working on his masterpiece, Grievous Angel, which again featured Harris, Burton, and Tutt. On July 15, 1973, Clarence White was killed by a drunk driver. During White's funeral, Parsons reflected on his own mortality and told his friend and manager, Phil Kaufman, that if he ever died, he would like to be cremated and have his ashes scattered in his favorite place, Joshua Tree National Park. Following White's death, a shaken Parsons composed In My Hour of Darkness, partly in honor of his fellow musician. After Parsons finished recording Grievous Angel, he traveled to Joshua Tree. On September 19, 1973, less than 2 days after arriving at the Joshua Tree Inn, Gram Parsons died following an accidental overdose on morphine and alcohol. He was 26 years old. As Parsons' family made plans to bury him in Louisiana, Kaufman and a friend stole his body from the airport and, in a borrowed hearse, drove it to Joshua Tree in a gruesome attempt to fulfill his wish of being cremated and having his ashes scattered in the place he loved the most. Parsons' remains were eventually interred at the Garden of Memory Cemetery in Metairie, Louisiana. In the years following his tragic passing, Gram Parsons' uncompromising love for country music and his ability to translate it to other genres won him the well-deserved reputation as country rock's greatest pioneer. As later generations discover his music, drawn in by his heartbreaking lyrics, they find themselves mesmerized by the man, his powerful charisma leaping out from photographs. Gone way too soon, this cosmic American cowboy rides on through his music and in our hearts.
We never really had a definite audience that we could play to all the time. It's sometimes not as easy as just popping a pill and sitting down and having a big light bulb shine above your head. Sometimes you have to really get down into it. You shouldn't expect miracles or anything. What matters is that I keep playing music. That's what I want to do.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and to like this video. If you want to receive notifications for new videos, click the bell.